The committee meets this morning to continue receiving testimony on the Department of Defense's report on implementation of a repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Yesterday, we heard from Secretary Gates, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mullen, and the co-chairs of the department's working group on this issue. Today, we hear from the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General James Cartwright, and from the senior military officers of each of the services. Army Chief of Staff General George Casey, Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Gary Roughead, Commandant of the Marine Corps General James Amos, Chief of Staff of the Air Force General Norton Schwartz, and Commandant of the Coast Guard Admiral Robert Papp. The chiefs are tasked to organize, train, and equip our military forces. That's an important and challenging task, and we are all grateful to the service of each of you to this nation. If we repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, as I believe we should, the legislation stipulates that repeal will not take effect unless and until there is a certification by the President, Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs that they have adopted the necessary implementation steps to assure that we maintain our standards of military readiness and effectiveness, unit cohesion, and recruiting and retention. Several of you have testified before this committee that you had concerns about repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. You also testified that you supported Secretary Gates' intention to conduct the working group review and indicated that its findings might influence your views. We heard yesterday that your views helped shape the working group's report and recommendations. And we heard Secretary Gates testify yesterday to the following. Quote, I would not sign any certification until I was satisfied with the advice of the service chiefs that we had in fact mitigated, if not eliminated to the extent possible, risks to combat readiness, to unit cohesion and effectiveness, close quote. Committee wants to hear from each of you whether you're satisfied by that assurance from the Secretary of Defense, and we want to know whether you were adequately consulted by the working group. The report before us confirms that a large majority of troops believe that repeal is consistent with maintaining unit effectiveness, as do the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. The working group found higher levels of concern about repeal in some segments of the military, such as the Marine Corps, combat arms branches of the Army, and Special Operations Forces. The working group found that training, education, and leadership will be vital in mitigating those concerns. And of great importance, the report demonstrates that actual experience serving alongside gay and lesbian colleagues has a powerful and positive effect on service members' attitudes. As the co-chairs of the working group, Jay Johnson and General Carter Ham, wrote in their report, quote, while a higher percentage of service members in war-fighting units predict negative effects of repeal, the percentage distinctions between war-fighting units and the entire military are almost non-existent when asked about the actual experience of serving in a unit with someone believed to be gay, close quote. Now, that is to say that predictions of negative effects are higher among troops in warfighting units, but the actual experience of troops in combat units who have fought alongside gays is that their units were largely unaffected, according to the working group report. This evidence is confirmed by the experience of some of our closest allies who have made this change. In the militaries of Great Britain and Canada, there was even greater concern about this shift before it was made than exists today in our military. But the working group reports that their transition was smoother than expected and that there is no evidence that a change in policy has diminished combat effectiveness for these allies who have fought side by side with us over the last decade. The working group has laid out a careful, deliberative plan to implement repeal while mitigating risks. While that plan focuses on the importance of leadership, education, and training, I agree with Admiral Mullen, who told us yesterday it is leadership that matters most.